My parents own their house because of me. That's the first thing you need to know because it's the reason everything played out the way it did. I'm Dwayne, 31. My brother Damien is 34. Our dad Ambrose worked warehouse jobs his whole life, never saved a dime. Our mom Nora stretched every dollar. When I was 23, I started a logistics consulting operation helping shipping outfits optimize routes and contracts. By 26, I was earning more than both my parents combined ever had. When they were about to lose their house to a tax lien 3 years ago, I paid it off. $41,000. I covered the new roof the following spring. I'd been paying their property insurance since 2022 because Ambrose kept letting it lapse. Damien has worked the same entry-level position at a building supply store for 11 years. That was never the problem. The problem with Damien was entitlement. Growing up, Nora babied him constantly, made excuses for his grades, his attitude, his revolving door of girlfriends who all apparently drove him away, according to Nora. Damien was sensitive. According to reality, Damien believed the world owed him whatever the person standing next to him had. I met Mia when I was 27. She was finishing her dental hygienist certification. We met at a friend's cookout. Within a year, we were living together. I proposed in March 2024, wedding set for October. Damien met Mia exactly 4 times before the cookout at my parents' place in June 2024, where I noticed him being way too comfortable with her, touching her lower back, handing her a drink. I brought it up to Mia that night and she told me I was being ridiculous, that Damien was just being nice. I accepted that. By August, Mia started going quiet with her phone, angling the screen, taking it to the bathroom, keeping it face down on every surface. I asked about it one Thursday evening and she said work group chats and that I was being controlling. She used that word like a weapon every time I brought up anything uncomfortable and it worked because no guy wants to be that guy. The week before Labor Day, I came home from a client trip on Wednesday about 4 hours earlier than expected. Damien's 2019 Tacoma was in our apartment lot. I sat in my car for 15 minutes staring at it. Then I went upstairs. Door was locked, which it never was during the day. I used my key. They were on the couch not doing anything explicit, but Mia had her legs across his lap and they both jumped up when I walked in. Damien started saying it wasn't what it looked like. They were just hanging out. Mia had been stressed about wedding planning. Mia started crying, said she was going to tell me. It had only been a few weeks, didn't mean anything. I asked Damien one question, how long? He said 3 weeks. Mia said, since July. Even standing in my own living room, they couldn't coordinate their lies. I told Damien to get out, told Mia the engagement was over. She begged, said wedding stress pushed her towards someone who was just there. I asked why it had to be my brother and she said she didn't plan it. I packed a bag and stayed at a hotel. Here's where my family comes in. I called Nora the next morning. Her first response was asking if I was sure, if maybe I misunderstood. I told her I found them on my couch. She went quiet, then said Damien had already called and his version was different, that he and Mia developed feelings but nothing physical happened. I told her what I saw. She said maybe I was exaggerating because I was hurt. I called Ambrose. He listened, then told me Damien had been going through a rough patch and sometimes people make mistakes and maybe I should think about what I might have done to push Mia away. Over the next 2 weeks, I found out from my cousin Angela that Damien and Mia were openly together and Nora had been telling extended family the breakup was mutual, that Mia and I grew apart and she and Damien found each other afterward. Angela sent me screenshots from a family group chat on WhatsApp where Nora literally typed that I was being dramatic. October 2024, my wedding month. Instead of getting married, I watched my family absorb the woman who cheated on me like nothing happened. Nora invited Mia to family dinner 3 weeks after the breakup. Ambrose shook Damien's hand at that dinner and told him he was glad someone in the family could make Mia happy. Angela told me about it and she was furious, but she was Ambrose's niece, not his daughter, and her outrage didn't carry weight. Then Christmas. Nora called in December and said Damien and Mia would be there. I was welcome but needed to be civil and accept that things changed. I said I wasn't coming if they were there. She said fine, don't come, and that I was choosing to be alone because of pride. Christmas Day. I sat in my apartment eating takeout thinking about the $41,000, the roof, the insurance premiums. Every Thanksgiving I brought groceries. Every birthday I covered. Every time Ambrose's truck broke down and I was the first call. And I didn't feel sad. I felt focused. I started making plans. January 2025, I cut all contact. No announcement. Just stopped answering, stopped paying their insurance, stopped existing for them. And I started building something they wouldn't see coming until it was too late. Every step was deliberate, and when they finally called begging, it wasn't because they missed me. $64,000 into a house he doesn't own for people who, when the moment came, couldn't even pretend to be conflicted about choosing the other son. Like Nora didn't even do the thing where you at least act torn. She speed ran the acceptance, had Mia at the dinner table before the wedding deposits were even refunded. And Ambrose, maybe think about what you did to push Mia away. Bro, your 34-year-old son is living in your basement rent-free, hasn't leveled up since Obama's second term, and you're asking the successful son what he did wrong? That man looked at his ATM and his meal ticket sitting in the same room and made the coldest financial decision of his life disguised as parenting. But honestly, what gets me is that Dwayne sat there on Christmas alone eating takeout, doing the math in his head on years of generosity, and he didn't spiral. He got quiet. And if you've ever been truly wronged by people you loved, you know the difference between someone getting quiet because they're broken and someone getting quiet because they're building something. Dwayne was building. Update 1. Alright, promised an update, so here it is. A lot of you told me to just walk away and build my life. I respect that. But walking away was never the plan. Walking away is what they were counting on. January 2025, I went silent on all of them. But silent didn't mean idle. First thing I did was pull together every financial record related to my parents' house. The tax lien payoff, the roof contractor receipts, the insurance payments. I keep everything organized on a cloud drive. I sat down with a property attorney the second week of January. $41,000 on the lien, $14,000 on the roof. Roughly $9,000 in insurance premiums. $64,000 total into a house I don't own and I never had my name on. The attorney said because there was no promissory note or written loan agreement, my parents could argue it was a gift. But the amount, the pattern, and the documentation gave me a strong basis for an unjust enrichment claim. Not a slam dunk, but enough to file and enough to put a lien on the property while it worked through court. That lien would mean they couldn't sell, refinance, or borrow against the house without resolving it first. I didn't do this because I needed the money. My business was doing well. I did this because that house was the one thing Ambrose and Nora cared about more than anything, more than me apparently, and I wanted them to feel what it's like when the ground shifts under you. Filed in February. Process server showed up on a Thursday morning. Angela told me Nora called her within the hour absolutely losing it, saying I was trying to steal their home, not take back money I gave them. Steal their home. Ambrose called me that same day. First contact since Christmas. No apology, no asking how I was. Went straight into telling me I was ungrateful, that everything I had was because they raised me. That the money was the least I could do after all they sacrificed. I let him go for about 3 minutes, then told him I had documentation for every dollar. And if he wanted to settle for the full amount, I'd drop the claim. He said I'd never see a penny and hung up. Here's where it gets complicated. What I didn't mention before is that Damien had been living in my parents' basement since 2021. Free rent, free utilities, free meals upstairs. That arrangement worked as long as the house was stable. But with a lien on the property and a court fight coming, Nora and Ambrose started panicking about money. And when Nora panics, she squeezes whoever is closest. By late February, Nora was demanding Damien start paying rent. Not a lot, but something because they needed a legal fund. Damien, who has never paid rent and makes maybe $38,000 a year, did not take this well. He told Nora the whole situation was my fault and she should be pressuring me to drop the case, not charging him for a basement he'd used for free for 4 years. Nora told him maybe if he hadn't gotten involved with Mia, none of this would be happening. That was the first time anyone in my family acknowledged out loud that what Damien did was actually a problem. But it gets better. Mia was spending 3 or 4 nights a week at my parents' house in the basement with Damien. Nora had tolerated it while playing happy family, but once financial pressure hit, Mia's presence became a resource drain. Extra food, water, electricity. Nora told Damien that Mia needed to contribute or stop coming over so much. Damien told Mia. Mia, who had her own apartment and job, was offended and told Damien his family was treating her like a burden and they should get their own place. Damien, making $38,000 in a market where a one-bedroom runs about $1,400 a month, said they couldn't afford it. So now Nora and Ambrose are fighting about the lawsuit. Nora and Damien are fighting about rent. Damien and Mia are fighting about their living situation. All of it traced back to the fact that the person keeping everything afloat decided to stop. March 2025. I got a massive text from Nora. She started saying she was disappointed in me, that families don't sue each other, that Ambrose hadn't slept in weeks. Halfway through it shifted into guilt, saying she missed me, holidays weren't the same. She didn't raise me to be vindictive. She ended by saying if I dropped the case, she was willing to talk about repairing things. I sent back one line. $64,000 or we go to court. What Nora didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the lawsuit was only step one. I'd been having conversations with Angela about something involving Damien's living situation that none of them expected. I'll get to that next update. Some of you asked if I felt guilty. I don't. These people watched me get betrayed and chose the side that was convenient. The only thing I feel is patient. Dwayne is operating with the kind of surgical precision that only comes from someone who has genuinely deeply loved these people and got nothing back. And I think that's the part a lot of people miss when they read stories like this and go, just move on. Be the bigger person. Be the bigger person for Dwayne who? For the family that reframed his heartbreak as a personality flaw? Nora out here telling extended family the breakup was mutual. She wasn't just picking sides. She was rewriting history in real time. And now suddenly families don't sue each other? Families also don't roll out the red carpet for the woman who was sneaking into your other son's apartment 2 months before his wedding. But here we are, Nora. And the domino effect is beautiful in the most brutal way. One filing, one legal action, and suddenly every relationship in that house is eating itself alive. Nora squeezing Damien for rent, Damien blaming everyone but himself, Mia realizing the fantasy basement romance comes with actual basement problems. Dwayne didn't even have to do anything to them. He just stopped doing things for them. And the whole structure collapsed because it was never a family. It was a sponsorship and he pulled the funding. Update 2. So, I teased the Angela thing at the end of the last update, and a lot of you were guessing in the comments. Nobody got it right. Here's what happened. Angela is Ambrose's niece, my cousin, and the only family member who stayed on my side through all of this. But Angela isn't just loyal to me out of pure kindness. She has her own history with Nora and Ambrose. When Angela's mom, Ambrose's sister, got sick in 2019, Angela asked Ambrose to help with some of the care logistics since they lived closer to the hospital. Ambrose told her it wasn't his problem, and that his sister had made her own choices. Angela never forgot that. So, when I told her what I was planning, she didn't hesitate. Here's the thing about Damien living in that basement. He's been there since 2021, but there's never been a lease. No rental agreement, no written terms, nothing. He doesn't pay rent, doesn't pay utilities, has no documentation establishing him as a tenant. Angela works in property management. She knows tenancy law inside out. And she told I'd already been researching on my own. In our state, even without a lease, someone living in a property for that long has established occupancy rights. You can't just throw them out. You have to go through formal eviction proceedings. But here's the flip side. If the property owner does want to formalize the arrangement or force an eviction, the occupant's lack of any written agreement makes their position weaker in specific ways that matter during a lien dispute. I'm going to be honest, the legal details get complicated, and I don't fully understand all of it myself. What I do understand is what my attorney explained in plain terms. Because my unjust enrichment lien was on the property, and because Damien was an undocumented occupant with no lease, I could petition the court to include his occupancy as part of the property evaluation. Basically, argue that his free living arrangement was an ongoing benefit my parents were providing using a house that my money kept from being seized. My attorney said it would complicate things for them significantly because now they'd have to either formalize Damien's tenancy and charge him market rent or evict him to simplify the property's financial picture for the court. I filed the amended claim in mid-March, and that's when everything really started falling apart. Nora called Angela before she even called me. She was frantic, saying I was now trying to get Damien kicked out of the house on top of everything else. Angela played it neutral, said she didn't know the details, said I hadn't told her anything. Nora bought it because Nora has always underestimated Angela. Then Ambrose showed up at my apartment. No call, no text, just showed up on a Saturday afternoon. I opened the door and he stood there looking like he hadn't slept in days. He started by telling me this had gone too far, that I was tearing the family apart over a girl. Over a girl, that's what he called it. Not over the fact that my brother slept with my fiancée, not over the fact that they chose him. Over a girl. I told him that it stopped being about Mia a long time ago, and that this was about the fact that I bankrolled their lives and they repaid me by spitting in my face. He said I was keeping score, and that family doesn't keep score. I told him family also doesn't invite your son's ex-fiancée to Christmas dinner 3 months after she cheated on him with his brother. We went back and forth in my doorway for almost 20 minutes. He kept circling back to the idea that I owed them because they raised me, fed me, put a roof over my head for 18 years. I told him that's called being a parent, not building a debt ledger. He said Damien was struggling, and that putting him on the street wouldn't fix anything. I said Damien was 34 years old and had been living for free in a basement for 4 years, and maybe that was the problem. Ambrose said I was punishing everyone because I couldn't handle losing Mia. I told him I lost Mia because his favorite son took her, and he held the door open. He left without saying anything else. No resolution, no agreement, just left. By April, the cracks were everywhere. Angela told me Damien and Mia were fighting constantly because the eviction threat meant he might have to actually find his own place, and Mia had made it clear she wasn't signing a lease with someone making $38,000 a year. Nora was barely speaking to Ambrose because she blamed him for not handling things with Mia earlier. Ambrose was drinking more than usual and had called out of work twice in 1 week, and Damien finally texted me. First direct contact since the day I caught them on my couch. It was a long message, maybe the longest thing he's ever typed, and it boiled down to him saying I was destroying the family because I couldn't accept that Mia chose him, that I was using money as a weapon because I had nothing else, and that if I were half the man I thought I was, I'd settle this face-to-face instead of hiding behind lawyers. I read it, screenshot it, and sent back, "See you in court." But Damien's text gave me something I didn't expect. Not information exactly, but confirmation of something I'd been suspecting. He said Mia chose him, present tense, which meant they were still together, still in that basement, still playing house on our parents' dime while the whole structure was crumbling around them. And that meant the final part of what I had planned would hit exactly the way I needed it to. Next update is the last one. And yeah, it's the one where they all start calling. Ambrose standing in that doorway saying family doesn't keep score is maybe the most delusional thing I've heard in one of these stories, because yes, they do, Ambrose. You kept score. You kept meticulous score. You just thought the scoreboard only went one direction. Every time you called Dwayne when your truck broke down, that was a score. Every lapsed insurance premium he picked up, score. $41,000 tax lien, that was the championship game, and you were on the losing team. You just never looked at the board because you assumed the kid writing checks would never stop writing them. And calling this whole thing over a girl, that's not just dismissive. That's a strategy. That's minimization as a weapon. If you can shrink what happened down to a girl, then Dwayne's response looks disproportionate. But it was never about a girl. It was about watching your family reveal in real time exactly how much you matter to them when your money isn't in the equation. And the answer was you don't. Damien texting Mia chose me from a basement he doesn't pay for in a house he didn't save, wearing confidence built entirely on his brother's infrastructure. That man is standing on a trapdoor bragging about the view. Final update. Last one. Buckle up. After Damien's text in April telling me to settle this face-to-face, I decided to do exactly that. But not the way he meant. I had my attorney send a formal settlement offer directly to my parents. Not through Nora's emotional texts, not through Ambrose showing up at my door, a proper legal document with a deadline. The offer was simple. Pay back the $64,000 within 90 days, or I would proceed with the full claim, which at that point included the amended petition about Damien's occupancy. My attorney included a provision that if they chose to sell the house to pay the debt, I would accept the amount from the proceeds and release the lien. If they didn't, I'd push for a court-ordered sale. A court-ordered sale of the house they raised us in, the house Nora had lived in for 31 years. They had 90 days. They didn't have $64,000, and they knew it. The first week of May is when the calls started. Nora was calling me every single day, sometimes twice. I picked up once. She spent the first 10 minutes going between anger and begging, telling me I was going to leave them homeless, that Ambrose was talking about having to move into a rental at 62 years old, that she'd never be able to show her face in the neighborhood again. I told her that I gave them a way out. Pay me back or settle, and that I had offered Ambrose the same deal months ago, and he told me I'd never see a penny. She said they didn't have it. I said then we go to court. She asked me if this was really about the money, or if I was just trying to hurt them. I told her it was both. That conversation lasted almost 40 minutes, and by the end, she was cycling through every angle she could think of. She tried guilt, saying I was her son, and she carried me for 9 months. She tried bargaining, offering to pay $500 a month until the debt was cleared, which at that rate would take over 10 years. She tried turning it around, saying I was the one who offered to help with the house, and nobody forced me. I told her she was right. Nobody forced me. And nobody forced them to pick my brother over me either. But here we are. Ambrose never called. Too proud. But Angela told me he'd been talking to his coworkers about possibly taking a second job. He was 62. That information didn't make me feel good, exactly, but it didn't make me pull back either. Now, here's the part I've been building to. Mid-May, Damien and Mia broke up. Not because of anything dramatic, because of math. Mia had spent months watching Damien fail to produce any kind of plan for their future. No savings, no apartment hunt, no career advancement. She told him, according to what Angela overheard at a family gathering Mia still attended, that she didn't leave one brother just to downgrade her life. Let that sink in. She literally told him she downgraded. Angela said Damien didn't even argue. He just sat there. Mia moved out of the rotation of staying at the basement and went back to her own apartment full-time. Within 2 weeks, she'd unfollowed everyone in the family on social media. So, Damien lost the girl. The girl he blew up my engagement for. The girl my parents chose over me. Gone. And she didn't leave because I did anything to her or contacted her or schemed against her. She left because Damien is exactly who he's always been. A guy with no drive living in his parents' basement. And once the safety net I provided was gone, there was nothing left to make that arrangement look acceptable. Damien texted me again after the breakup. Different tone this time. No more talk about being the better man. He said I'd ruined his life. I'd taken away the family stability, put the house at risk, and driven Mia away because she couldn't handle the stress. Everything was still my fault in his version. I told him that Mia left because he had nothing to offer, and that the stress didn't create that problem. It just revealed it. He didn't respond. Late May, Nora sent me a message through Angela because I'd stopped picking up. She said they'd talked to a real estate agent. They were considering selling the house to pay off my claim and downsizing into an apartment. She said Ambrose had agreed but wasn't speaking to anyone about it. She asked if I would drop the case if they committed to paying me back through the sale. I told Angela to tell her yes. If they sold and paid the full amount, I'd release everything. The calls kept coming through June. Nora, mostly. Sometimes just voicemails asking me to please talk to her, that I was all she had left now that Damien was barely functional and Mia was gone. She actually said that. You're all we have left. The same woman who told me not to come to Christmas because my pride was the problem. They listed the house the first week of July. I want to end this by going back to something Ambrose said to me the day he showed up at my apartment. He told me family doesn't keep score. And maybe he's right. Maybe healthy families don't. But healthy families also don't watch one son destroy another and then set a place at the table for the person who helped him do it. They kept score every single day I was paying their bills and keeping their house standing. They just didn't realize the balance was going to come due. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel healed. I don't feel at peace. I feel like I did exactly what I planned to do and it worked. That's enough for me. Thanks for reading all of this. I'm done updating. I didn't leave one brother just to downgrade my life. Mia said that to his face and Damien just sat there. Because what do you say? She's right. She is right. And that's the most devastating part of this entire story. Not the lawsuit, not the house, not the lien. It's that Mia was never in love with Damien. She was in love with the lifestyle that Dwayne's money had built around Damien. The basement was tolerable when the house was paid off and stable and there was a functioning family upstairs pretending everything was fine. Take away the financial safety net and what was Damien? A 34-year-old making $38,000 a year with no savings, no plan, and a mother who just started charging him rent for the first time in his adult life. Mia didn't leave because of stress. Mia left because the illusion ran out. Dwayne didn't have to sabotage that relationship. He just stopped subsidizing it. And Nora calling to say, "You're all we have left." I need everyone to understand the audacity of that sentence. You had him. You had him the whole time. He was right there writing checks and fixing roofs and showing up for every holiday with grocery bags. And you looked at him, looked at the son who betrayed him, and said, "Be civil." You chose comfort over your own child, and now you're calling him because the comfort is gone and the child is all that's left. That's not reconciliation. That's a withdrawal from an account you already emptied. Dwayne said something at the end that I think is going to stick with me for a long time. He said he doesn't feel guilty, doesn't feel healed, doesn't feel at peace. He feels like he did what he planned and it worked. And people are going to read that and say it's cold, that he should feel something more, that revenge doesn't fix the wound. And maybe they're right. But I think the reason Dwayne feels nothing is because he already did all his feeling. He felt it Christmas Day eating takeout alone. He felt it when his dad said, "What did you do to push Mia away?" He felt it when Nora typed, "He's being dramatic," in a group chat. All the grief and rage and heartbreak already happened. What came after wasn't emotion. It was engineering. And I don't know if that's healthy. I don't know if Dwayne is going to wake up in 5 years and feel the weight of all this. But I know one thing. Every single person in that family made a calculation about what Dwayne was worth to them. And every single one of them got the math wrong. And he made them show their work. You're watching Hidden Lies, where secrets don't stay buried. This story will make you question everything. Stay till the end.